less relevant with each tier.
Yeah.
Farming OP legendary gear that lasts for longer is more enticing and brings people to the game. So what if it's all because of a legendary axe? Isn't that great? Isn't that what we...
Yeah, that's what it should be. Like, people like, oh wow, people are only doing this raid because they want the cool weapon from the raid. Yeah. I'd guess so. Yeah, I think that's about accurate, isn't it? What? The vanilla model is superior, don't need add-ons, don't need sweats, everyone can get fulfilled. That is another reason why I thought like larger raid sizes are better, is because you can carry people with stuff straight up. I just think experience. I think you're trying to make an MMO hard is a mistake. You should not try to make an MMO hard.
we want in a game, a cool, badass weapon to chase and get. If anything, that just proves that having meaningful loot brings people back into the game. Now, imagine if this loot was not just a legendary strength axe, but something for more people. Imagine if the loot could carry you through at least half of Season 4. We can speculate, but we can also use the freaking data in front of our face to point out that it is what people have been wanting, or at least part of why they're enjoying the game currently. It is what Asmon was saying he would want: meaningful loot. If he was right about this thing, what about the other stuff?
This is what I think Blizzard should do. I think they should remove 80% of the trash from raids, and they should add a summoning stone right next to every single boss arena, and next to the summoning stone there should be a respawn point.
That's a fact.
That boss, you respawn at that point.
Yep.
Although I'm not sold on the raid trash, I think trash makes the raid feel more like a lively place than a corridor with 8 bosses just sitting in silence awkwardly waiting for people to come in.
I think that's a good point, and I can see why he thinks that. I do think it should be at least toned down to where it doesn't take as much time as it does. I think that there is too much trash currently. A few packs are fine.
I'm not keen about the other stuff. Having to wait for people in any form, either them getting their butts to the raid or coming back to start another pool, is incredibly boring and wastes so much time for a raid night. This is even more of an issue when bosses are particularly difficult and require multiple pulls to down, because, you know, the raid is tuned for better and better people. How would the game turn out if more of these things would be addressed? And what about Mythic Plus? Well, if we can summarize Asmongold's opinion into a concise point of view, the game is overly designed and overly tuned to the point where new people and current people are finding it hard to engage with. Then we can draw conclusions about Mythic Plus over the course.
It's just, look at all this shit going on, man. It's too much shit going on. I get sensory overload just looking at the screen.
Course of Dragonflight, the Mythic Plus system has been drastically nerfed. We don't have a seasonal affix anymore, and affixes in general are less of a headache. This alone should point to an already existing flaw with the design. Affixes are only fun if they can be ignored, or if they don't just pose walls for arbitrary friction. And if I may be so bold, I point you towards Encrypted, Awakened, Reaping, and generally affixes that provided bonuses for being cleared or just sheer stupid fun. But putting that aside, M+ is easier and more people can do it. Evidence? How about the fact that there are 5 times more keys done now than any other season? Easily summarizing a full expansion's worth of keys done within one patch that is not even over. We covered this in a previous video, by the way. And this is without even all of the things being changed for Mythic Plus that people could enjoy. One of which was also pointed out by Asmon, one that we mentioned before and agree with.
I don't think that there is a single reason for a key to deplete in Mythic Plus.
Listen, Asmongold does not speak for us, or even the player base. He's just one person.
I do.
And the biggest content creator for that covers WoW.
Yes.
Because I don't think he can be called a WoW content creator anymore.
Not really.
So naturally, a large part of the player base watches him, may or may not agree with him as well. But Asmongold is a reflection of a section of players within the WoW community. Oddly enough, some of the stuff he says resonates with us as well, so there is something here. Nobody is 100% right, but in this sense, Asmon criticized aspects of the game designed to be of a negative impact on the game's popularity and enjoy.
Yeah, I think that key depletions are stupid, and I don't see any reason for... I don't see them adding anything into the game. Like, in no way do key depletions make the game better. Like, I think that they just make it worse. Like, and I think that this is really kind of a good way to look at it. Is this making the game more fun? Is it making people play the game more? Are people enjoying doing this? Because there's a lot of times where, like, it's something that you're doing, but you don't really enjoy doing it. Key depletions are why I paid the sub. Yeah, key should not deplete. Yeah, it's just silly. It scares people from trying. Yeah, exactly. People are punished twice. They make the IO problem worse. Why would you want to risk some newer players whenever you can just wait for guaranteed carries to apply? Exactly, and that's also another issue. Is that, like, the reason why there's so much meta... So, very simple. I've said it many times. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about it. The harder you punish players, the harder players try to avoid being punished. And what that manifests in WoW is that people will try their best to avoid playing with anybody who's not meta. Because the odds are, if you take two equal players, and one person is doing 100,000 DPS, and the other person is doing 110,000 DPS, and that's the only frame of reference that you have to go off of, you're going to take the 110 every single time, assuming that you don't have any other data. And that's really what happens. Without key depletes, you would literally do a massive pull over and over until you succeed, which is a negative playstyle, restarting the key over and over. I would rather people do massive pulls over and over and over, resetting the key constantly, than them. And also, like, why would they do that? Like, who would do that? Like, a small subset of people? And this is what the problem is, right? Is that WoW players have this mentality that if somebody can slightly take advantage of a system, we have to completely remove this system. No, you don't. It's not a big deal if people take advantage of a system. Who cares?
And looking at how some of them were addressed and as a consequence got people to play the game more, kind of makes him right in an abstract way, maybe even more of an empirical way if this path continues with War Within.
Yeah.
All of this to point to a really cool thing, which is the devs are actually making the game better. They have been for a while, honestly, but we can see it in the numbers as well, since it's unlikely Blizz will ever publish player-based numbers unless we get back into the multi-million zone. And if you still don't believe that WoW is doing way better than before and likely better than what most people think, check our video about it right here. More facts and evidence will be provided, I promise.
I think that's a pretty fair video. I'm glad that he agrees with all of this stuff. There are more people that used to play WoW that quit than people that are currently playing WoW. So whenever I say these are reasons why I'm not playing the game, I think that there are a lot of other people that are also not playing the game that agree with that. Asmongold makes the WoW community rage yet again. This is always what it is. This is always what happens.
It is the worst time of the year in North Carolina. It's allergy season.
Ooh.
And for those that don't know, I am horribly allergic to grass pollen, which is why I am wearing this. Otherwise, I cannot go outside. Today, though, as we go on this adventure out into the woods, we are going to address a little bit of controversy that our favorite bald streamer has created. That's right, Asmongold is at it again, pissing off the World of Warcraft community. So what did he do? You might be wondering.
It's crazy to think to yourself that I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been making people mad about this shit for 10 years.
Well, he shared his three ideas for how he feels Blizzard could fix World of Warcraft. And I am going to go over his 3 points and share my responses to his ideas as a vanilla WoW veteran player myself.
Here's how to fix WoW. Reset everybody's spells. Good one, guys. And then remake every class with like 10 spells or less.
Before I answer, there's a lot of ants on this rock. So let's move to a different place. Come on, let's go. This
Okay.
idea right here, I actually disagree with it 100%. I'm a really big fan of role-playing games, and when it comes to RPGs...
By the way, when I was saying like 10 spells, I meant rotational spells. Like, you should have other flavor spells, like portals and stuff like that. Yeah, I was only talking about rotational spells.
I want to be able to play whoever it is that I want to play. I want to have a bunch of spells and abilities that I can choose from to really create the character and to fulfill the fantasy that's going on in the back of my head. I just got stung by a yellow jacket. That kind of sucked. I'm assuming that what Asmongold is arguing for here is just an argument from balance. He wants to play an MMORPG where the classes are very simple, very well designed, very well tuned, and perfectly balanced with each other. However, I would make two arguments.
I think also it makes it more accessible for people to not have to deal with like 50 different buttons. Like, in a lot of times, like, I think that one of the best high points of class design was actually in Legion. And I think that Legion was such a high point because of the prune of WoD. Like, WoD, after the prune was bad, but with Legion adding in the, like, Mists of Pandaria, in my opinion, was way too much. I thought it was way, way, way too much. And, like, Legion was like that perfect middle ground where, like, every class felt complete and it felt good, but there wasn't, like, an overabundance of skills, and there were still a lot of things you could press.
That I think a lot of people are going to disagree on, but I'm going to say them anyway, because why not? Point number one, you want to play a perfectly balanced game? You can play chess. Role-playing games can be kind of stupid. There's always some crazy, overpowered nonsense when it comes to playing an RPG.
He's totally right about this, and I agree with him. I don't think that you should build the game for, like, absolute balance, but at the same time, whenever balance becomes too asymmetrical, then everybody starts playing and doing one thing, and it ruins the game. So, like, balance does matter whenever it trends in an extreme. And, like, some class or something is, like, unbalanced to the extent that everybody is playing it. It becomes such meta, yeah. And I think that really the way you solve that is by frequent updates and redesigns regularly to always keep that meta from shifting. Because the meta will always happen, and the longer that you let it crystallize, the more people that start playing towards that meta.
In Skyrim, you have the Stealth Archer. In Wrath of the Lich King, to name just one expansion example, you have the Death Knight. In a game full of complex spells and abilities, there's always going to be a lack of balance. And Blizzard trying to make every class equal in terms of damage and numericals, I would say that's the reason why all the classes feel exactly the same.
They do.
And the second reason why I disagree, and this is fun.
And yeah, like with every class has a big AoE. Like back in Classic WoW, I think that Classic WoW, the reason why class design was so good in Classic WoW was because some classes were bad at stuff. Because, like, really, classes, in order for a class to be able to shine, other classes have to not shine.
I'm not ready
so,
yet.
like, if you look at, for example, like Dragon's Dogma, there are probably classes that can kill golems really easily. But as a warrior, I am fucked fighting a golem. However, if I'm fighting a Drake, I can destroy them. It's not even a big deal at all. So, like, each class has, like, different advantages and different things that are easier for them. And that's kind of what my point is.
I know a lot of people are going to disagree with, but I actually think having more spells makes the game feel like a proper role-playing game. And newsflash, and this is something I think even Blizzard Entertainment forgets sometimes, World of Warcraft is a role-playing game. Or it's supposed to be. And I would definitely argue, and this is a whole other subject, that World of Warcraft's RPG-ness has definitely fallen into decline over the years. I genuinely hold the opinion that more abilities, more customization, more opportunity to make your class who you really want it to be.
I agree with that, but I think that you should make sure that a lot of the abilities that are added aren't expected to be rotational combat abilities that people have to have on hand all the time to be using on a extremely regular basis, because it just creates keybind bloat and it makes it harder for people to keep up and learn new classes. So, like, you should have these, like, flavor abilities and cool things that classes can do, but it's like Enslaved Demon, for example. Enslaved Demon is like a perfect example of a spell that's amazing in the game, but you hardly ever use it. And it's so cool that it exists. So you want to have spells like Enslaved Demon, but you don't want to have just like random filler spells that you have to spam and keep doing all the time.
That's good
Subjugate
for an
Demon.
RPG.
Oh, excuse me.
To conclude, when it comes to this point of Asmongold's, I'm actually on the exact opposite wavelength. He wants less.
I'd be curious to hear what Nixium's perspective is, thinking about it in terms of like rotational combat abilities, because like that's really what I mean. Because like, for example, like if you had a mage, like, I mean, if 10 buttons total, well, then you couldn't have any portals or teleports, right? So logically, of course, that's not what I meant. However, I'd actually be curious to hear what his opinion on that is, because I think that he would agree, but I don't know.
Abilities.
But I think that what he's saying here is true.
Maybe he's making this argument more for the sake of balance. I'm making this argument.
I don't care about balance.
More for the sake of
I do,
fun,
but not that much.
because I think fun and madness and sometimes even broken builds, I think that's a part of what makes RPGs very special.
It does. He's right. I'm not saying devs shouldn't try to balance the game at all, but the pursuit and perfectly balanced MMORPG has led the game into a state where figure criticism is the classes feeling too similar and not enough identity. Thoughts, yes or no? I think that classes felt amazing. There were 3 high points of WoW in terms of class design. Wrath of the Lich King, Mists of Pandaria, and Legion. And Classic, I would say. I think that even Season of Discovery goes too far with giving classes tools that they don't naturally have. I think that in order to have class identity, you have to have classes that are bad at things.
Not while I'm in town.
Like what? Like a mage being able to heal.
Let's move on to Asmongold's second point and hear what he has to say, shall we?
Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Number 2. Remove all raiding difficulties except for 40-man raids, and then make 40-man raids of the relative same difficulty as like Ulduar hard modes. One factor is that I think that optional hard modes for certain bosses, like again Ulduar hard modes or like Terrace of the End of Spring, the first boss, are cool.
I do not have the materials.
This point is absolutely fucking stupid, because it should be 20-man, not 40. Now look, I'm a total classic Andy. I mean, I'm even wearing my Death Equals Delete shirt for Hardcore Classic. But I think that 40-man raiding, although really cool, although a bit of a nightmare to organize, 40 players is a little too much. 20, I think, is a good compromise between the classic Andy, you know, the classic raider, and the modern 10-man raider. Just meet in the middle with 20.
10
but
man?
I do agree with
Who's doing 10-man raiding? Like, I personally, like, look, I think 40 man is too much. I guess I have an unpopular opinion. I do. I guess my opinion is not popular. But I don't think that I'm wrong. I do. I think that 40 is way more fun. It's much cooler. It creates more of a aesthetic of being in a real raid. I think 20 isn't enough people. I think 40 also creates like a community inside of the raid with a lot of people in it. I like it. Yeah, like I do. I like it. It seems that I'm massively outvoted with this, but I do genuinely believe this. Would you settle for 30? No.
The idea of the raids just having a single difficulty. In fact, personally, in my opinion, I've always been against all these different tiers of difficulty when it comes to raiding. I would rather it be that when you go into a raid, you have the same experience that everybody else has had that went into that raid. You get 19 of your closest friends together, you go and do whatever the latest content is. It's a very challenging piece of endgame content, and you come out with that new tier set, those pieces of gear, and you feel like a complete badass.
I agree with that. I wish that the gameplay was more uniform. And I think that even inside of Mythic raiding, there's like multiple difficulties. Like how they nerf these bosses, like I look at some of the nerfs on bosses that happen, and it's like this is being reduced by 20%. This is insane. Like the AoE damage to this is like reduced by 30%. Oh my god, this totally changes the way it works. So whenever I see this, I feel like that's also a different difficulty. And I think that every time that Blizzard has to nerf a fight in like a big way, that's because they tuned it badly. I don't think that you should have to ever nerf a fight, because it should be tuned in a way that's good from the beginning.
Think LFR and normal, heroic, and so on and so forth. I think that's all just so unnecessary. Just have the raid be the raid. Have it be that when you killed the boss, you killed the boss of the
That's right.
expansion.
Yes.
You know, you don't go and
It means the
get
same
gear
thing
just
for
so
everybody.
that you can kill him again.
Exactly.
I don't know. I've never really liked difficulties in MMOs, like difficulty scaling when it comes to raiding.
I feel the exact same way. That's why I don't like Mythic Plus. I just don't. Like, I like games that have, like, one uniform difficulty, and the thing is that you can always create difficulty, but if the game creates difficulty, you can't, like, uncreate it in a way. So, like, whenever you have a game that has, like, an easy baseline, the difficulty factor becomes speedrunning. And I feel like speedrunning is cooler than just fighting a harder and harder version. It's just my opinion.
I've never been a big fan of that, so I actually agree with Asmongold on that regard. A single raid difficulty, a single challenge that every single person equally has to take part in, I actually kind of like that.
Yeah. And it provides like a shared player experience inside of the community. So for example, if you killed Ragnaros in Classic WoW, you had the same experience as anybody else. Now, obviously, if you had better gears later on in the expansion, it's not completely the same, but it's much more the same versus like LFR and Mythic or LFR and Heroic. So like in Dark Souls, if somebody kills Ornstein and Smo, that means one thing. Everybody knows exactly what that means. And I think that's what makes it exciting. Same as Dragon's Dogma. It's kind of the same thing. There's no difficulty mode on it. I like that.
Before we talk about the third point, I do want to quickly give a shout out to this channel's sponsor, Zygor. It's World of Warcraft's ultimate guide add-on for leveling, getting achievements, mounts, pets, whatever you want, and it's all linked down below in the description. And before you ask, this water is absolutely freezing because we are not in summer yet, but
Jesus.
Feels nice on the feet.
Remove all add-ons with no exceptions. 100%. Please agree with me. Please.
All right, let's get out of here.
Please. Please, bro. Please.
This is not a good take from Asmongold, in fact. I would say that he probably wasn't really thinking when he said this.
I was thinking perfectly. I regret nothing. There should be no add-ons. Period. No add-ons. Zero.
And that's not an insult, by the way. It's not an insult towards Asmongold.
I like Nixium a lot, by the way. I think this guy's great. I've known him for years. If he disagrees with me on WoW, it doesn't mean I hate him, okay?
Whatsoever. What I mean, though, is a lot of players genuinely depend on add-ons to play the game. Shout
That's the problem, though, isn't it?
Everything is ruined.
out to these guys. The first group I thought of when he said, oh, remove all add-ons, were the role players. Role players depend on add-ons like tongues and total roleplay in order to really bring out their character, to connect with other role players and speak other languages in game. Griffin Heart items, so on and so forth. Role players need this. And then in regard,
I agree that they do. And I think that's why Blizzard should add it into the game as a baseline. Just the same way as they did with a lot of the features. Like, for example, in I think Trial of the Crusader, Blizzard did their first version of like raid frames, and it was amazing. And people had already had raid frames from like Xpearl and stuff like that. But whenever Blizzard made theirs, then it was accessible to everybody. So I think that really it's about creating again a uniform experience that people can enjoy. But if you you can't say remove all add-ons without also at the same time saying Blizzard needs to be more proactive in adding the tools that add-ons are used to solve, right? And so that's basically what's happening, is add-ons need to also be added into the game as a baseline. Like, for example, Final Fantasy XIV. They don't have chat bubbles in Final Fantasy XIV. So people did an add-on for it, and then finally Final Fantasy came down really hard on add-ons, and now Final Fantasy is just adding that feature into the game as a baseline. That's what should be happening, rather than people putting add-ons into the game and the UI just being bad.
regards to just simple conveniences, I don't think there's anything wrong with Bagnon, for example. questy, or even Zygor.
I completely agree with you in theory, but I think in practice it would be impossible to draw a distinction between add-ons that are problematic versus unproblematic. I would even be okay if there was like a community accepted add-ons, like just for a bag add-on or something like that. But where I draw the line completely is with combat add-ons. I think there should be literally 0 combat add-ons. And I even think things like handy notes are bad. Quality of life is fine. Yeah, like they're okay, but I would just prefer, and I think that like really whenever you start to draw the line, it becomes impossible to know where it is. So like whenever I say remove all add-ons, this is my realist take, because I think that there would be no way that you could implement this rule with having gray area. And I think that it would be better for the game to have no add-ons than to have the culture that we have now with add-ons.
Guide add-ons just to help you kind of get to max level faster for the sake of, you know, maybe running some raids with your guildies, or saving you time from having to boot up Wowhead to figure out where that mount is, that pet, how to make more gold or something. Add-ons like Zygor show you how to do all of this. We made it to a bench, everybody. Now I can finally
There's a lot of add-ons that do that, and I think that's fine, right? It's not really a big deal. It's the combat add-ons that are really, really bad. And I just think that Blizzard can't remove combat add-ons exclusively, and they would have to remove all of them. And I would rather them remove all add-ons completely. And also, I think that there's another factor with this, is like Nixium and I, like we've both played the game for over 15 years, right? So we understand all the nuances of the game, but I want you guys to understand that for a lot of new players, the prospect of having to download a third-party application that then downloads additional mods onto your computer in order for you to play a video game as a baseline is very unsettling. Like, I remember whenever I had to do it in 2006, and I was like, is this like a virus or something like that? It's like it gives people pause immediately. And I think just asking people to do that at all is a bit uncomfortable. And also, not to mention the fact that it's fucking annoying. So I think that really, whenever I'm talking about removing add-ons, I am talking about it from like kind of both extremes, because I think that like middle ground players don't really care a lot about add-ons, but I think that they're incredibly toxic for like high-end players and also really low-end players. Because for low-end players, now this is like, you know, this is a person that's like just started the game recently, and now they have to learn about like, you know, like add-ons and all this other stuff. It's like basically an extra hidden iceberg of like learning curve that doesn't even have anything to do with the game. So it makes it really hard for like a newer player to get into the game. And at the same time, it creates such a contrived high-end player experience with all the add-ons and weak auras and plugins and tools that they have, that the way that they play the game is so different that the developers literally have to make the game around that context. And those are the people that really get damaged by add-ons. Now, I think that add-ons decrease the overall quality of the game collectively, but I think that those extremes of players, like the bottom and the top 10% of players, are the most negatively affected by add-ons.
Shoes on. You can see that my shoes are a little bit covered in mud.
Just a bit.
That was the bottom of my feet for a while, but walking from way over there has pretty much cleaned them off.
There it is.
Nice.
I just go hiking like this all the time.
That's so much better. Now look, I know that Asmongold
I used to have a place like this near my house. I built forts out there. You know what that place looks like right now? Apartments.
Along the lines of add-ons like details or deadly boss mods.
Yeah.
Add-ons that essentially play the game for you at endgame.
I'd not even play the game for you. Add-ons that provide you a higher degree of awareness. Anything that increases your awareness or the way that you are processing information.
Or add-ons that just track data so that people can like smack talk you because you're not doing the highest DPS. I'm pretty sure that that's what Asmongold was referring to. when he said,
yeah, definitely. That's the worst offender, but I do think that I do think that I have a strong and compelling, like, my argument for 40-man raids is like, I think 40-man raids are really cool, and it's like, you know, it's like a whole group of people, and it's like a movie, like, you know, Lord of the Rings, there's a bunch of people fighting against something. Like, that's my argument for like 40-man raids. It's mainly just a vibes argument, and like kind of like, I think this is cool argument. But I do think like my add-on point is a lot stronger, and I think that I can really, like, I can argue that a lot more because it's not just like my opinion. Like, my opinion is I like 40-man raids, but I do genuinely think that add-ons are bad.
you know, removing add-ons without prejudice.
You see what I'm saying?
You could make the argument that endgame add-ons like DBM is cheating.
It is.
But then you'd also have to make the argument that using Questy is cheating. Using an add-on that records where like your certain Peace Bloom spawns are and stuff, that would be cheating. I personally don't agree with Asmongold on this one either. I think add-ons are fine, be them small add-ons or more complex ones. I think they're okay. All right, we've made it back. Look at this, dude. In the time that we took that walk...
For a second, I thought that he wrote Asmon sucks on the fucking window. For just like a split second, I was like, did he really write Asmon sucks?
This allergy season message is almost recovered in pollen.
Yeah.
That's how bad it is out here. Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed our little adventure out here in North Carolina today. Hopefully the comment section doesn't get too salty because I disagreed with Asmongold on some stuff. But to be fair, I don't give a shit. If you guys want to go on another adventure with me, I highly recommend my Day 1 Classic WoW Hardcore Self-Found video. Check that one out next. It's on your screen right now. And if you guys would like for me to make a video sharing my thoughts on how I would fix World of Warcraft, let me know down in the comments section.
I want to see that.
Below. I'm going home, man. It's hotter than a camel's anus out here.
I definitely want to see that shit.
Oh, crap. I think I left Asmongold back at the creek.
Okay.
He'll be fine.
I would be. That'd be okay with me. That's fine with me. Absolutely. Getting rid of add-ons would require an impossible amount of dev work to compensate. I mean, yeah, but don't you think it's important to invest into that, into the future of the game, if you think that it's problematic? Because I think that it is. I think it's worth it. I really do. I think it's such a big deal to do and make that experience better for, like, the average player. Those poor devs. Yeah, and I think it's insane. How? Just get rid of Mythic Plus? I mean, I don't know if that's really going to solve it. But, yeah, this is the way that I feel about it. I feel the most strongly about add-ons. Like the like rotational spells, this is like, it kind of depends. It's like whatever. Like I think that, yeah, like basically reduce half of the abilities that people have in the game. Like it's just way too much stuff going on, especially with like rotational abilities that players have to like dynamically choose when to use in combat. I think is overwhelming. It's just too much stuff going on. And also people have add-ons that play the game for them in that aspect as well. But the main thing that I really care about the most is the add-ons. I think the add-ons issue is the biggest deal, but the other ones are, you know, kind of like whatever. Look at PvP, for example. One big add-on takes up your entire screen, complete disconnect from the games. Add-ons are fucking bullshit, and cheating really sucks so much stuff going on. Yep, there we go. I think this video is bad faith. There's no way he doesn't know the nuance of your takes, but they're omitted here. He's just talking about it. It's not really a big deal. Yeah, and I'm just glad people are talking about what I was saying. And I think that really, I was surprised to see how many people agreed with me about add-ons. Like, I knew that the 40-man rating thing, there's the video. I think this is a good video. Give it a like. I really like Nixium a lot. I've known him for years.
Not while I'm in town. I need more time. not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. Grey or two. I'm not ready yet.
Salutations, Wanderer. Come and don the mantle of history's champions. Let me show you more, traveler. Sound selection. Stirs you, yes? See. Interesting choice. It's a bold choice. Very good. Powerful calling.
I'm not ready yet.
He was here. Gathlin, healer of spirits, your den is safe once more. The winter of the great tree's corruption has passed. Honor us with your return. Etom Tuan